Hello, everyone. How are we doing today? I know that Facebook and Instagram is just telling you I am here right now. So it is Thursday Tea with me, Katie B. I am so excited to be here today. I will be sharing my story with you today about going from fear to empowerment. So, as always, when sharing my story, I'm feeling vulnerable, I'm feeling nervous because that's what happens. And I want to be totally transparent and honest with you that still, even though you see me get on here and speak every week and talk to you and do these things, publicly, I still feel very vulnerable and nervous when sharing my story. So that's what we're going to do today. But first, it is Thursday tea, so let's talk about the tea this week. This week, I am drinking an Energized tea by Twinings. It's a matcha tea. You can see that. The light's kind of putting a glare on it. But let's give it a go. Let's see how it is. It's still very hot, but I like it. It's a little cranberry, a little lime, and I chose it today because I needed a little bit of an energy boost, a little bit of inspiration and confidence as I share my story with you. So if you are here, give me a little wave. Let me know you're here. I'd love to hear that you're here. If you've got tea, coffee, something you're drinking, let me know what you're drinking. So I am Katie Bach. For those of you who do not know me, at katiebach.com, an intuitive spiritual guide and mindset coach. I help women to clear their blocks, to release what's been holding them back, and to step into their best life with yoga, meditation, energy work, and mindset tools. So today, I'm going to talk about my story with yoga, with meditation, and how I transformed from fear to empowerment. So give me a little wave here if you really experience fear in your life, because that's something that comes up for all of us. There's fear within each of our chakra centers that really come into different aspects of our life. And we also all experience trauma throughout our life, which that bubbles up different fears within us as well. So I'm going to start in my story years and years ago when I was in high school and I was in an abusive relationship, an unhealthy abusive relationship, physically, mentally, emotionally abusive relationship. And I had stepped into this belief of I wasn't worthy. I wasn't worthy, I wasn't enough. And so this was where I was meant to be, right? This was the belief system that I had lived in. And so I kept myself in this relationship because I already had this belief of not being worthy, and I had this fear that nobody else would want me, that I wasn't worthy, that I wasn't enough for anyone else. And through that abuse, that fear was just fed and fed and fed. And so for years, I allowed myself to live in fear. And that fear created this need to control. Perfectionism got worse, this need to control everything. And through that fear and through that need to control, really, when I look at my life now, I can see how it was just spiraling out of control, spiraling in this direction of really pulling me away from myself and who I was, and forgetting that I was this amazing, beautiful person. And this happens, in life through our experiences and through things we are told and things we choose to believe and all of these things. So that was me for a good chunk of time. And then at 18, I found out I was pregnant, and everything kind of shifted for me because it was no longer just about me, and I had to really step into this role as someone else, to be for someone else. So in many ways that empowered me, but it was when I was pregnant and I walked into a prenatal yoga class because someone dragged me to it, that everything really started to shift for me, and I really began to connect back to myself and who I was. And we often forget that person inside. We forget who we are, and we live in fear because we don't know who we are, and we don't know who we can be, and we're not fulfilling those needs and desires that we have within us because we don't even know what they are. We don't even know that soul inside. And so as I took this prenatal yoga, it really empowered me. It really taught me to get to know myself. And so it gave me this strength to actually face my fear. One of my biggest fears was to say no and to put up boundaries, because what would happen? What would happen if I put these boundaries up? Would I lose everything? Would I be making the wrong choice? And that is where the perfectionism comes in. Am I going to make the wrong choice? Am I going to do the wrong thing? And taking this yoga session really allowed me to get to know myself and my needs and what I needed to be healthy, to be okay. And it empowered me to actually start saying no and create those boundaries I needed to create, even though I was afraid. I was so afraid, and I was still living in fear. But I was also stepping into my power. And so then, I became a mom at 19, and I was still living for someone else. I wasn't living for myself. I had no idea what I wanted, what I needed, what was enjoyable to me, because I went from being in an abusive relationship, unhealthy relationship, where everything was just about controlling the situation and doing what needed to be done to keep everything, on this even plane. So there were no outbursts, there was nothing happening, all of that control and all of that. I was living from that place. I was living for someone else. And then I was a mother, and I was living to take care of this beautiful child that I was, so grateful to have, but I was not concerned about myself. And again, living in fear. I was living in fear of what could happen to him. What could happen if this happens? If I make the wrong choice, if this person decides, all of these things. Because of that abuse that I had experienced, because of the trauma that I was living with. And so I was living in fear, and I was allowing myself to be controlled by the trauma that I had experienced. And so I then went into yoga teacher training, because I knew how profound yoga had been in my life. I knew how much of a transformation it had created for me. And so I stepped into this teacher training wanting to share yoga with the world, because of the amazing transformation it had created in me, even though I was still living in fear and I didn't realize it. It had created so much transformation, given me so much strength and so much power. And so I did this yoga teacher training, and it catapulted me in this empowerment direction, where I got to know myself on such a level where I started to actually figure out what I enjoyed doing and what felt good for me and what I wanted to do in my life. And I started to make myself important and worthy. And, the fear started to go away, especially when I was confronted with someone specifically telling me what I was doing was wrong. And I knew that it was not wrong. I knew that I was making the best choices I could make for myself, for my child. But someone was telling me it was wrong. And the moment I stood up for myself and what I believed in and what I knew to be correct is the moment that my power grew immensely. And it was because of that yoga teacher training. It was because I had learned to know myself. I had learned how powerful I was. And I had started to heal this trauma that I experienced through this understanding of being a witness, of an observer. That this trauma is not actually happening to me anymore. And my responses are responses based on the past. And so as I learned this through yoga teacher training, through different yoga practices, I began to understand how to be the witness, how to be the observer, and choose how I wanted to react. And do the practices that work for me to shift out of these places. So I went from fear and being afraid to empowerment. But here's the thing. Being a yoga teacher, being a yoga practitioner, living in life, we are always expanding. We are always leveling up and expanding. And so we always have these things that come back to us in different ways, these fears that we have that come back to us in different ways. And so even just this morning, I'm having a morning, one of those mornings where I woke up late, I had meetings before the live, I had things I wanted to do, and I woke up late, and I didn't get them done, and I have to do them later, and then I'm walking down to, go live, and I'm running late. My tea is hot. As I'm walking down, it's spilling everywhere. I'm kind of feeling blah. All the things, right? When you're just having a morning. And as I'm walking down the stairs, and this is happening, the tea's spilling all over the place, and I'm like, a few years ago, I would literally be looking to the sky and saying, what the fuck? Why are you doing this to me? What is happening? Why? Right? Like, have you ever done that? Have you ever looked to the sky and just been like, why? Why are you doing this to me? Right? But instead, I was just like, this is happening. Okay, let's keep going. I'm going to get down there. I'm going to set it up. I'm going to go live. And I'm going to share my story. But that response comes from the place of being an observer, being a witness, and choosing how to react. And through yoga, meditation, and energy work, I've created this space for myself to heal my trauma, to learn how to be that observer, and to not be yelling at the sky all the time like, what the fuck? Because that's what I would do, like, we all have mornings. Life happens to all of us. And it's all about how we react, how we choose to come into that space of being the observer and reacting and doing the practices that support us. Truth is, I haven't even gotten to meditate yet this morning, which is like totally throwing me off. But I'm going with the flow and knowing that I'll get to meditate in a little bit this afternoon, right? And it's because of the practices that I consistently do. It's because of the understanding that I gained from teacher training that I have been able to step out of fear and into empowerment. Because in all honesty, at this point in time in my life, I'm in a place of expansion. I have never felt more joy and more abundance in my life and felt more low at the same time. Right now, in this moment in my life, today, this week, this month, this year, there is so much expansion happening and up-leveling happening and fear dumping into my life. Fears that I have faced for years. And I'm just not afraid anymore. Because of all the work that I have done through yoga and through meditation and really understanding how fucking powerful I am. And the truth is, you are powerful too. It's all about getting to understand that power and getting to know yourself and learning those practices that support you. And so even though I'm in this expansion phase, because expansion doesn't necessarily feel good. A lot of times we go to that low, that breakdown, and then we have that big breakthrough and expansion. And even though I'm in this low place, I am free. Because even as the fears come up, I trust and I know that I have the power to face whatever it is. And when you come into that space, it's an amazing feeling. Because even though I want to cry, I can laugh. And even if I'm laughing and I want to cry, I'm still here. And I'm understanding these practices that really work for me, that support me. I'm understanding the things that I need to do to empower myself. And that all comes from this place of getting to know myself, of understanding how to empower myself. And that all really began for me in yoga teacher training. Because we dive so deep into these practices that support you. Not just physically moving your body or meditation for the mind, but this deep philosophy that supports you every day in your life. And it empowers you. It reminds you that the divine is actually within you. That you don't have to search outside of yourself for the answers, that they are all in here. And it's such a beautiful feeling. And so through yoga, through meditation, through that yoga teacher training experience and the years that followed and this information that I have learned and that I have studied, not just in teacher training, but I have studied, and worked with for years now, I have been able to step out of the fear, all the fears, because I lived in fear. I lived in fear of I would make the wrong choice. I would do the wrong thing. I lived in fear of what would happen. I lived in fear of what other people would do, even if I was just sitting there doing nothing. I mean, it was just fear all the way. And now I am in a place that where these fears come up, it's okay. I can say, okay, I'm afraid. This fear is here. It feels real, but like, let's step back. I'm powerful. What can I do to shift out of this fear? Is it real? Does it exist? I've learned to create this space for myself that I can go from fear to empowerment because I know that I have the power, because I know that I am strong. And that is available for you. That empowerment to go from that fear to empowerment. Anxiety is fear. Worry is fear. Stress is fear. But we all have this power too. We all have fear. Fear comes up for all of us. It's part of our human experience. But we all have power too. Big, amazing power. And so that's a little bit about my story, going from fear to empowerment. And it's really why I do what I do. It's why I get on here live every week. It's why I do teacher training. It's why I do the yoga training. It's why I teach yoga, meditation. It's why I do energy healing sessions. Because of the amazing transformation that I know it creates. Not just in myself, but in you as well. So, if you're here, give me a little wave. Consider, what are you afraid of? What fear is stopping you? And do you know what empowers you? Do you know what helps you step in your power and kind of walk through that fear? Or what you need to be in the space that you're in? Because those are your answers. So I have got applications open for yoga teacher training right now. I would love for you to join, for us to take you from fear to empowerment, to feel that amazing transformation that I have experienced in my life through these practices. And it's not just about moving your body. It's not just about meditation. It goes so far beyond that. So katiebach.com/YTT. Apply. There are no strings attached. It gets you the opportunity to jump on Zoom with me and have a little chat. So that's always fun. But really, going from fear to empowerment is truly amazing. And this is the transformation that is created in yoga training. And that is why you hear people say it's life-changing, it's profound, because of this amazing transformation that is created through these practices, through this training, through this supportive sacred space. So if you're just getting here, the tea today is energized, because I needed a little energy boost. Again, as I shared in my story, I am at a low point right now, today, this week, this month, but I'm also at an extremely high point. And to be in both at once is kind of eye-opening and empowering even more. And I want to help you get there too. So even when you're low, you can feel those joys and the abundance that's there, and feel that bliss that is yours. So the tea today is Energize by Twinings. It's a cranberry and lime matcha tea. It's pretty good. I actually wasn't sure how I was going to feel about it, but I like it. So you guys, if you are ready to go from fear to empowerment, drop a comment below, send me a message, empowerment, and let's chat. Let's get you from that fear to empowerment. Let's create that transformation for you in your life. Applications are open for yoga teacher training, katiebach.com/YTT. I'd love to see you there. Lots of love to you guys. Thank you for being here today. Thank you for listening to my story. As I shared, in the beginning, it makes me feel very vulnerable, and I still get nervous sharing my story despite everything. But I know that sharing my story can potentially help you as well. So lots of love, you guys, and I will see you next week.